Okay, so welcome everyone. We're doing another deep dive today looking at some specific source material.
That's right. And the topic this time is something called the Agile Release Train. You'll often just hear it called an RE.
Yeah, RT. And we've got this PDF excerpt, Safe Agile Release Trained RET.pdf. That's our source.
Mm-hmm. And our job really is to unpack this document for you. We want to figure out, based on this source, what exactly is an art? How is it, put together? How does it work day to
And
day?
what's it supposed to do? What are its main jobs, its responsibilities? The goal is to give you a clear picture pretty quickly.
So let's dive in. The source, it defines an art as, let me see, a long-lived team of agile teams, okay? Team of teams.
Right. And it says they incrementally develop, deliver, and often operate solutions
Mm-hmm.
within a development value stream. Long sentence, but key bits there.
Incrementally delivers, operates.
Yeah.
And long live, that feels important too, not just a temporary project.
Definitely. And it adds they're aligned to a common vision and roadmap, and they use safe methods, scaled agile framework.
Okay. Now, what's really interesting right off the bat is how the source contrasts this
Contrast it with what?
with, the old way. Traditional setups, big companies with totally separate departments.
The silos. Dev team here,
Mm.
QA team over there, ops somewhere else entirely.
Exactly. Where work just creeps along, handed off from one group to the next. Lots of waiting, lots of paperwork, potential for things to get dropped.
Yeah, the classic bottlenecks. So the RT is meant to be different.
Totally different, according to this. And this is sort of the core idea, the aha moment, I think.
Okay.
The RRT is designed to bring all the necessary people together. The source is clear. This includes people who define the work.
Like product managers.
Yeah, them. And the people who deliver it. The developers, the testers.
Right.
And even the folks who operate the solution once it's live.
So like DevOps principles build right in?
Kind of seems that way, yeah.
Yeah.
By putting them all on the same train, the idea is you break down those walls. You get rid of the handoffs.
Which should mean faster flow.
That's the promise, according to the source. A fast, smooth flow of value. From the initial idea, sketched on a napkin maybe, all the way to running software that customers are actually using. It's about optimizing the whole journey.
Okay, that makes sense. Instead of sequential steps, it's more collaborative end-to-end. So how are we going to break this down? Where do we start with the source?
Well, the document kind of lays it out for us. We should probably look at who's on the IRT first, the composition.
Makes sense. Who are the players?
Then how does this train actually, move? How does it operate? What's the rhythm?
Okay, operation. Got it.
And finally, what's its job? The source lists 5 core responsibilities. We should definitely dig into those.
Composition, operation, responsibilities. Sounds like a plan. Let's start with composition. Who makes up this long-lived team of agile teams?
Well, the foundation, obviously, is the agile teams themselves.
Right, the ones doing the actual building.
Yeah. And the source says these could be Scrum teams or Kanban teams, maybe a mix. Could be tech people, business people, or both. It depends on what's being built. They're the engine, basically.
Okay. And who decides what they build? What's the direction?
That's where product management comes in. The source gives them ownership of the vision, the roadmap, and the backlog for the entire RT.
So they're figuring out customer needs and turning them into features for the teams.
Exactly. They're kind of the voice of the customer on the train, making sure it's building the right stuff.
Gotcha. Now, complex systems need technical oversight, right? There must be an architect role.
Yep, absolutely. The system architect. The source highlights their job. Define the overall architecture, make sure it all hangs together technically, that it's scalable, maintainable.
So they're looking across all the teams, ensuring technical coherence.
Precisely, making sure the pieces fit.
And then there's someone keeping the whole train moving, dealing with problems.
That's the release train engineer, or RTE.
Okay, what's their role? Like a super scrum master?
Ooh. Sort of, but for the whole train. The document calls them the chief facilitator, the problem solver for the RT. They focus on execution, getting rid of blockers, pushing for continuous improvement.
So keeping the process healthy and the value flowing.
Yeah, helping the system work better.
Okay, so we have the agile teams doing the work, product management setting the direction, the system architect handling the tech view, and the RTE facilitating flow. That's the core group.
That seems to be the core crew described here, yes.
All right, now how does this group operate together? You said it's different from just having separate teams. What makes the train run?
This is where that train metaphor gets practical in the source material. You know how independent teams can sometimes drift apart, get out of sync?
Oh yeah, different schedules, different priorities.
Right. RTs try to fix that with a specific rhythm and coordination. The source points to 4 key aspects of how they operate.
Okay, what's the first one?
Alignment. The source says this means all teams share a common cadence.
A common cadence,
Yeah.
like sprints starting and ending at the same time.
Essentially, yeah, everyone's marching to the same beat. It's fundamental for coordinating anything complex across multiple teams.
Makes sense. And what works with that?
Synchronization. It's related but distinct. This means key activities happen at predictable times for everyone.
Like planning together. Or maybe demos.
Exactly. Planning, demos, maybe even releases. Critical events line up across the whole train, especially where teams depend on each other. It avoids that, oh, we weren't ready for your problem.
Right, dependencies are a killer.
Eh.
Okay, alignment, synchronization. What's next?
Continuous integration. This sounds huge.
How so?
The source really emphasizes this. It says the system iterates as a whole. Teams aren't just building their little piece in isolation.
So they're constantly putting the pieces together.
Constantly integrating their work with everyone else's. The idea is you should always have a working, tested version of the entire solution growing, not just finding out it doesn't fit together at the very end.
Okay, that's a big discipline shift. And this all happens within some time structure.
Yeah. Yes, the fourth point. Planning intervals, or PIs.
PIs, I've heard that term.
The source says these are typically 8-12-wint development rhythm, like a big cycle for the whole train.
So a fixed period, maybe 10 weeks, let's say,
Yeah.
where everyone plans together at the start, executes, integrates demos, and then reflects.
That's the idea. It
Yeah.
provides this predictable heartbeat for the entire RT, a container for planning, doing the work, and learning together.
Okay, so the composition tells us who's on the train. The operation tells us how it moves together on this PI cadence. Let's shift to what the train is actually responsible for. What does the source say an RT needs to deliver on? You mentioned 5 core responsibilities.
Yeah, 5 big ones, and
Yeah.
the first one listed, it's fundamental connecting with the customer.
Right at the top. Makes sense. What does that involve, according to the source?
Well, it means really embracing customer centricity, like deeply understanding their needs, thinking about solutions from their angle, building empathy, not just guessing.
Oh, yeah.
It mentions using design thinking methods, exploring problems, prototyping solutions, making sure they're desirable for the customer, not just technically possible.
And actually talking to customers.
Yeah.
Getting feedback.
Absolutely critical. The source explicitly says get customer feedback routinely into the process. It even warns, avoid building capabilities customers don't need. That connection has to be real, baked into the work.
Okay, customer connection is number 1. What's number 2?
Responsibility 2 is planning the work. Makes sense. You need a plan.
What does that cover?
It's about linking what the RT does to the bigger picture, the overall portfolio strategy, making sure the train's going in the right direction for the business.
And also the more immediate planning.
Yes, preparing for and actually doing the program increment planning event, PI planning.
That big planning section for the 8-12-week interval.
That's the one, where all the teams get together, figure out the work for the next PI, sort out dependencies, and commit to what they'll achieve. It translates the strategy into action items for the cycle.
Okay. Connect with customer, plan the work. What's third?
Delivering value. This is the output, right? Getting stuff done.
What practices does the source highlight here?
Several things. One is integrating and testing work frequently, finding problems early when they're easier and cheaper to fix, reducing that end-of-cycle panic,
Less risk.
also developing in short increments, building small, usable pieces of value quickly. This allows for faster learning, faster feedback, rather than giant, risky releases.
And how do they enable that speed?
A continuous delivery pipeline. The source calls this essential infrastructure. Automation to let teams explore ideas, integrate, deploy to test environments, and release smoothly.
So the plumbing needs to be good.
Absolutely. And tied to that is having a clear release process. It needs to fit the strategy, meet any compliance rules, but the goal, the source says, is speeding up getting value to the market.
Okay, deliver value. That brings us to number 4.
Fourth responsibility, getting feedback. It's not enough just to ship it. You need to know if it worked.
How do they suggest doing that?
Measuring business outcomes. Not just, did we ship the feature, but did shipping the feature actually achieve the business goal? Did it move the needle?
So tracking real-world usage and impact.
Yeah, Exactly. And also doing routine testing beyond just does it crash. The source mentions things like A/B testing.
Trying different versions with real users to see what works better.
Right. Making decisions based on data, not just opinions.
Makes sense. Anything else on feedback?
Yes, dedicated testing of the user experience itself. Having a UX strategy, testing assumptions about how people will use it, checking if it's actually usable and effective.
So is it easy to use? Does it solve their problem well?
Pretty much. Ensuring the solution actually works for the user.
Okay. Customer connection,
Wait.
planning, delivering feedback. That's 4. What's the 5th and final responsibility?
Number 5 is improving relentlessly.
The continuous improvement aspect of Agile, scaled up.
Exactly. This means, first, measuring the RT's own performance. How well are we doing? Are we getting better? Looking at flow metrics, bottlenecks.
So measuring the process itself?
Yep, and then acting on it. Holding regular inspect and adapt workshops.
Like a retrospective for the whole train.
That's a good way to put it. A dedicated event where the entire RT looks back at the PI, what worked, what didn't, and comes up with concrete actions to improve for the next PI.
Okay. Formalizing the learning cycle.
And one more piece under improving relentlessly. Innovation and planning time, or INP time.
What's that?
The source says it's about allocating specific time within each PI, time that's protected for innovation, for exploring new ideas, for learning, for planning improvements.
So it's not just hoping people find time for innovation, it's actually scheduled.
Baked right into the cadence, yeah.
Yeah.
It stops improvement being squeezed out by delivery pressure.
That feels crucial. If you don't make time for it, it often doesn't happen.
Pretty much.
Okay, wow. We've covered a lot of ground based on this source doc. We defined the RT, that long-lived team of teams. We looked at who's on it. The Agile teams, product management, system architect, RTE.
Right, and how it operates with that common cadence, synchronization, continuous integration, all within those 8, 12-week planning intervals.
And then those 5 big responsibilities.
Mhm.
Connecting with the customer, planning the work, delivering value, getting feedback, and improving relentlessly.
Yeah, pulling it all together, this source presents ARTs as a pretty defined structure for scaling Agile. It brings together all those different roles onto one train, gets them on the same schedule, the PI, and focuses on integration and flow to, avoid those old silo problems.
So for you listening, understanding this RT model, at least as this source describes it, gives you a window into how larger organizations are trying to manage complex development, how they try to keep speed and agility while coordinating a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. And maybe a final thought to leave you with, kind of building on the source, it really hammers home the importance of everyone on the RT being connected to the customer, using feedback, always improving.
Right, those responsibilities.
Yeah, but the source gives us the structure, the roles, the process. Think about the people involved. What does it actually take day in, day out for a large group, dozens, maybe hundreds of people to maintain that deep customer connection, to keep that relentless improvement drive going over months, years?
Good question. It's probably more than just following the framework, right?
You'd think so. What kind of leadership, what kind of culture, beyond just the roles and events, is really needed for an RT to not just, exist on paper, but to truly thrive? The source doesn't detail that as much.
Definitely something to chew on. What makes it actually work in practice? Okay, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.